When you think about, the product market fits out of things and, more means better, of course, the quality plays a big part on this, right? I feel that, people never get that right, especially developers, they never get it right. Either, they are too emotionally attached and they over-design it, or they're too emotionally unattached and they under-design it. And so they're thinking about, oh, I'm going to build, 20 of these in an RGZ zone so that, I can sell these 2-bedroom apartments, which are 3 levels, and, I'm going to get the best bang for the buck for these. Or, they build these massive 4-bedroom, 45 square meter houses, and they think that, just because they're bigger, and a buyer would appreciate more and pay more. And there is a good balance between the two, right? How much quality do you put into a house is dictated by that product market fit as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, what you're saying, like quality over quantity. And you kind of really need to have that buyer profile piece because you don't really know who your buyer is going to be. And you don't want to do anything too specific that like no one would want it because it's kind of gone way too far down that direction where even, let's say, the materials palette from the designer might be like really niche and then it's just not going to be everyone's flavor. So you sort of have to work out how to pull that thing back. But yeah, again, you don't want to design, let's say, an enormous apartment. And at that point, someone would rather just purchase a house and land. So you're kind of really trying to figure out what's the good balance to have of those spaces and being able to take a step back and look at what is really actually selling in that area and what are people wanting, what is the sort of appetite out there in the market, and therefore how can we do the best possible product and version of that, in our building that's going to be better than your competitors, because there's always someone chasing your tail and coming up behind you. And if you found a great site, chances are someone might be building even right next door. And you really don't want to be going up against someone with, a poorly designed space or something that you've just whacked a rectangle on there for yield and it just doesn't have that appeal.
Definitely. And I think that's the most important part that you are talking about, that competition that comes in the area with a better design, and they might charge a bit premium, but, they would sell a lot faster and they might set a completely different precedence in that, pocket that you're trying to build something in there, understanding that, once the designs are finalized and, it's the site is shovel ready and you have started the slabs, that's it, right? You can't go back and change a lot of these things. And so, just leave such a bad taste in the mouth. I'll like to share this story for this particular person that I met last week. And this is an interesting one. So he was doing a feasibility on the side and he was like, oh, I'm building 27 square house. And I kept asking him, why 27? Like, I know that area quite well, 24 would just sell at the same price. And so while we were talking, I took like literally 5 minutes to see what was developing in the area. And there was a house that was sold literally 24 squares and that sold for 1.4. And I was like, so what are you trying to achieve? Like, you've got 24 at 1.4 million. And so that's your base case scenario. Basically build that. This is exactly the design that you want, right? Because there is precedence there. And he's like, oh, but if I do 27, then someone might pay me 1.6 or 1.7. I was like, no, it doesn't work that way. That 3 squares means nothing, if the design is not effective. It's not, people don't pay for bedrooms or toilets or
a corridor.
Exactly.
Just some long corridor leading to nowhere. And they're like, oh, but it's 27 squares.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, but, I'm building a big, but like you've added cost to it, multiply that cost by, $17,000, $80,000. That's the cost that you're paying for it. But the buyer might not look at it that way at all. And so why do that? And so I would rather build a smaller design, which is a lot more efficient in use from a storage perspective, from an ambience perspective, from a livability perspective, and charge a bigger premium by adding more premium inclusions in there rather than just, stocking in a long, big house, that doesn't, gels, doesn't provide the view or does not provide, the feel of the house when you basically go through it.
Completely. Or even offering inclusions, like even a volume builder does this, like at their core, they might say, do you want a fireplace? Do you want nicer tiles? Do you want, timber boards throughout instead of carpet? Like, you can offer all of those inclusions because you'd have that kind of budget or contingency sort of put aside. But if you're just building something large for the sake of it, like I always say to, developer clients that I've got, I'm like, it's not your house. Like, I know that you are like falling in love with it and so am I. And I think it's great. And like, we're making this gorgeous space, but if I can pull this wall in, by a meter or something, it's saving us room and it's going to cost you less. Like, I would advise, that we do it because it's just too big otherwise. It doesn't really make any sense unless like you say, that in that area, people are demanding, I want a bigger bedroom than a 3x3 for whatever reason. So
definitely. And so I think space plays a really good and important part in a lot of these things, same with the design and, balancing it with the cost. Talk to us a bit about, and this is something very new that I've come across, and I'm not sure how to define this. I was talking to an architect before, and he said every house has a particular ambience or a mood to it. What does that mean? What does mood of a house means?
Look, I guess every site kind of, it's got its own story to tell. Like it's in a particular area, it's got a certain orientation. It just has a feel, like when you go out there as a designer, you really start to sort of paint a picture of what it could be and, what the yard is or what the laundry is and how you kind of live your life. And as I'm designing stuff, I always picture myself like when I get home and I walk through the door, like what's the first thing I want to do? Do I want to take off my shoes, put away my coat? Have I got kits covered in mud that I want to put in the laundry and, strip them and then chuck them in the shower and stuff? So I think the entire mood then starts to inform, where are we? Like if we're out in the Dandenongs, for example, the material palette might be much more cozy because you're sort of almost got that rainforesty sort of country feeling out there, whereas inner city is going to be a lot more slick. It's going to be modern. It's got that, kind of busy like urban worker feel to it. So I think each place definitely gets influenced by its context. So that flows through the design.